Welcome, everybody. And I'd like to introduce myself for those of you who I've not yet met. I'm Lise Riet-Lague. I am the Assistant Head of School and the Director of Admissions and Advancement for Chesterfield Montessori School in St. Louis. And we are a toddler through 8th grade program. And I also work with ISACs and the National Association of the Independent Schools and the Independent Schools of St. Louis. And very happily with NIDO as well. We became members of NIDO. Our school did. I guess it's about a year ago, and it's been really great. So I am very happy to meet all of you and to see all of your faces, because some of you might have attended some other webinars that I did regarding admissions. I wanted to share this quote from Dr. Maria Montessori. Sorry, I have two computers going here, so bear with me. I thought that this was very apropos for this time that we're going through. Education should no longer be mostly imparting of knowledge, but must take a new path, seeking the release of human potentialities. I think that that's very appropriate because we are really in unprecedented times. This is very different. None of us have ever experienced anything like this before. Many of us come from schools that have been around for a very long time. Others might be with newer schools and newer programs, and it's created a lot of panic, obviously, in the independent school community for various reasons. Because first it was, how in the world do you even do distance learning with Montessori when it is a hands-on approach, right? I mean, that first and foremost was just like, blow your mind. Then second of all, you start with a couple of weeks and then you might have to finish out the school year from that. Have any of you announced closings through the end of the school year yet? You can just raise your hands. Yeah, some of you. So I believe that we will be announcing that shortly. We have not yet. Ours only goes till April 24th, but it's impossible that we would be open for the end of the school year. So we have been thinking very long and hard about how what this is going to look like and what it will look like for the future of our school, because I do believe that even if we do open in September, that we should all prepare for this to happen again, because if it does resurge or cases come back like the second wave, like they talk about, we could be closing again in the winter during the flu season. So these are some long-term thoughts that we have been floating back and forth at our school. And that changes how we approach admissions, even starting right now. What does that mean? So I know that you all have a long list of questions, and we will address all of those, but we have started to think about our admissions process in terms of right now, all the way to when we have people physically coming to see the school again, what that's going to look like, what we are changing and how we are communicating to these new families. Obviously, our distance learning plan has been, let's see, when did we launch it? It was right after spring break. I think March 20th might have been the first date that we launched the whole thing. Very happily, it's been going very well. But that being said, we're having continual conversations with parents about what's working, what's not working, how to change things, how to tweak it, what works, because some families are really struggling. And I think that that's something we should all remember, is that parents are not okay. You know, they might be safe at home, but that doesn't mean that they are feeling okay, and their children are probably not feeling okay either. We had one example of a 4-year-old in our primary program who just couldn't understand why he was not going back to school. He thought that no one wanted to see him anymore and he didn't have any more friends. And he just couldn't get his mind around the fact that we all had to stay home. And that was so heartbreaking for me to hear, because they just don't understand, you know. So you've got to bear that in mind from a lot of different fronts. Have any of you been involved in conversations with your current parents, like on Zoom forums, or are you doing that? Some of you? Okay. Do you have some way, like, have you done surveys to your parents or anything like that, asking how it's going? Show of hands. Okay, so we're doing both. We are doing a survey that will come out today, but before that, we have done a lot of reaching out for retention, because I think that this is the most important thing that we probably should start with, is retention. those are your families you already have at your school, right? You don't need to be concentrating at this moment only on the ones that you don't have. You need to think about the families that already attend. And what are they going through? How are they feeling? Is this working for them? Is it not working for them? What kind of support do they need? Have any of you done your re-enrollment already? Did you do it before this happened? Okay, so everyone who did it before, just give me a show of hands. Okay, oh, you guys are lucky. Okay, I did mine. We started and we're in the middle of the process, and everything was due back in St. Louis on between March 25th and April 3rd. So you can imagine we had to do this remotely. Have any of you still have an outstanding deadline? Pretty much everyone's done. Okay, a couple of you still have outstanding deadlines. Okay, so that's a whole, those are 3 different scenarios. So we'll talk about those of you who already have all your enrollment agreements in, what communication it has gone out around that, because obviously people have now committed. We have our families sign an enrollment agreement that is legally binding, as most of you probably do. I don't know what levels your schools are on, but if we need to talk about tuition, because I see that that's another point that everybody is very concerned about, is tuition. Are you having your families pay full tuition? And we will go into that, but you should be. And what you're doing with the families who have not yet enrolled. Have you given extensions? Are you taking away late fees, for example, which we are doing all of those things. So would we, Kasim and Danine, do you want me to start by going through some of the questions that we did? Do you guys want to ask questions?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, if y'all don't mind, I'm going to introduce Danine real quick because I didn't do that in the beginning. Forgive me, Danine. But Danine Gonzalez was with us at NITO and just launched her own consultancy, Rise Montessori, and she's here to help as well. So thanks for being here, Danine.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
We had 80 people submit, and I imagine a lot of those folks registered so they get the recordings, but I broke their questions into categories of 3. Or excuse me, there's more than 3 categories, but the 3 most common categories were admissions with a very strong first, which is great, Lise, because that's your strength. The second category to touch on is finances. And the third category to touch on is remote learning. And I don't think we'll get through all of those today, but what I do think we can do is maybe schedule some offshoots, was an idea that you had. So we can have follow-up calls just like this one that are category specific. So we can start coming up with really actionable things. And that's the one note that I want to drop in, and then I'll stop talking, is at NITO Marketing, we have a pretty big engine. So if we need to create stuff, landing pages, content, graphics, videos, whatever, we want to create it. We want to create it for Montessori schools. We want to create it for free, and we want to give it away to the entire Montessori community. We need to know what that is, though. And so, like Lise, you mentioned a survey asking parents how it's going. I'd love to have a template survey that we can just give to people so they can send that out. So
sure, we're sending ours out today, so I can send you that like an email link, and you all can look at that.
You're awesome. And anything that anybody can come up with, chat it in, chime in, let us know. And then one thing that Lise told me at the beginning is we want this to be an active discussion. So you don't have to stay muted. If you want the floor, let us know. If it gets a little messy, you might see me muting people, but we want to hear from everybody. We want this to be really collaborative. And other than that, I imagine, Lise, we can take it away. If you don't mind, you have the category list that I sent you, the question.
I've got the category list. So some of the biggest challenges that you all mentioned were admission seems to have come to a screeching halt, which yes, it absolutely has. I want to kind of put these in a little bit of context because some of them go around. How do you get inquiries at a time like this? You know, sending acceptance letters for a program that is closed, how to keep enrollment moving so we have a viable program for next school year. The number of inquiries is down. What will happen with enrollment next year? So let's start with admission seems to have come to a screeching halt. Yes, it absolutely has, because that is about the last thing that's on anyone's mind at this moment. For those of you who track, I don't know if any of you are Plan 4 members with NITO, but We are at our school, so we track the number of, for instance, tuition inquiries that come in, and those have continued to come in strongly. So people are still looking at schools. They are working from home. They might have a little more time. They are still continuing to look for schools. Does that mean that they might commit at this very moment? That's very hard to say, because none of us, unless you're working for a Montessori public sector, are free, and that's committing resources that you might not be sure that you have if you lose your job. So I would say really that one of the number one priorities we need to be working on is retention, first and foremost. You need to retain the families who you already have. Those families have already committed to you. Some of them might be new, some might be very long-standing families. And I'd like to share some things that I have done, and I'd like to hear from all of you too about what you have done regarding retention. Has everybody thought about retention in this context? Okay, good. So one of the very, very first things that I did, we were in the middle of re-enrollment, but I decided not to immediately ask everyone if they're turning in their enrollment agreements, because that seemed incredibly insensitive given that people are under great duress. So I actually sent personal notes to every single family in the school, and asked how they were doing. How are they doing? You know, we had already launched the distance learning plan. I was extremely busy with getting that launched and out to the families. But then I sent notes to everybody just saying, how's everyone doing? With a personal note. Some people work in hospitals. Some people, you know, have children on multiple levels. I made sure that it was pertaining. I didn't send like a mass email. It went to every family with a note, a personal note to them. That was really effective because it started a dialogue going. And from that, then we were able to say, how's distance learning going? You know, how, and also got immediate responses about the enrollment. So for those of you who have not yet done your re-enrollment yet, I would suggest doing that, but don't mention re-enrollment at all at this moment. Just first see how everyone's doing, connect with them. They will respond. Almost every single family that I sent that note to did respond. We are coming back to the school. We just want you to know we're sending the re-enrollment in the mail or whatever it is. Because ours was due, but it wasn't due exactly at the time that I sent the note. So I would say number one priority first is retention. Whatever you need to do to retain the families. Have you had conversations with your head? I don't know what the internal structure of everyone's school looks like, but for families who need extra support, who might need extensions on the enrollment agreement, who may have lost a job and need extra tuition assistance in order to maintain enrollment. Have you all had conversations around that at your schools? Okay, that's good. Does anyone want to share if you've had, do you have a lot of families who need extensions?
I can share just a little bit. Not too far from you. I'm in O'Fallon, Missouri. Oh, hi. I'm the director there at Oak Haven Montessori School. And
oh my gosh. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Our re-enrollment was due at the end of February. So we already had that in and had our commitments. So our biggest thing was, like you said, retention. We wanted to make sure that we reached out to our families right away. We sent one letter to all the families, and then we just said, you know, if anyone needs any help, whatever support you need, like please reach out to us directly. And we did get some responses from that. And we waited to send our tuition, because we do a monthly and then we do a semi-annual. So we just on Monday sent out a tuition letter that really strongly urged everyone to go ahead and pay their tuition, and why that was so important and what those funds are, you know, going towards. So we had 3 families that reached out, one saying that they weren't going to pay at all, and the other 2 just asking for either an extension or can we divide the payments up a little bit differently than how they committed. So that was really good for us. And then we've also been doing home visits. So we go to several families' houses 2 times a week, and we visit from our car. We've all made signs. We've done it up, and it's been really fun. That is the best thing that we've probably done, is those home visits, and our parents are just raving about it. They're so excited that we've taken the time to do it. So that's been a really big deal.
Oh, that's great. What a great idea. Has anyone else done anything particularly around retention of your current families? I love the home visits idea. I know that we have to be very careful now, obviously, with the social distancing and the state mandates for staying at home. That's, of course, really important. So the other thing, I made a little thing of notes. Hang on, it's on my other computer over here. So some of the things that I have seen done, and we actually did not do this, but we did it in a little bit different way. You can make videos of your staff members. If you can't physically go to the schools and do like a little drive around and visit, or to the homes and visit everybody, you can have your teachers and staff create little videos from their home environment and say, hi, everybody, like this is what we are doing. We really hope you're well. The students can send notes to each other. So I had that with teachers and staff can create videos sending warm wishes to students. Letters, our staff has written letters to the students. And of course our staff, I don't know how you're doing your distance learning, but ours is very, depending on the level, it changes for each level depending on the screen time it's a very tricky thing, right? Because toddlers really can't sit still enough and concentrate long enough to have large Zoom phone calls. So they do have some songs maybe and story time, sort of like a circle time with Zoom, but the connection there is really focused on the parents with Zoom meetings and with different conferences. And we actually created a blog for our parents that is specific for the distance learning. That way the parents can log on there. For primary, we do a lot of different Zoom, meetings. We have this set up where we have all group meetings, and the children can all log on with their parents and have a lesson from the teacher. Then we put all of those lessons into a central location where the parents can access them if they can't do them immediately. That's on Google Classrooms. And then we also have one-on-one lessons with Zoom with the children, and meetings with the parents regularly, plus parent forums. And the parent forums, the meetings with the parents I'm talking about are a one-on-one connection with the teacher and the parent, with the child not present and not being able to hear what is being said. The parent forums are organized for the whole class to come together. All the parents can sit on like we're doing now and chat with the teacher about what's working and just to connect. Because I think one of the biggest things that we are hearing, I'm just going to read this because I wrote this down, is that from everyone that we've been working with is the need for connection. That is really the most important thing among the teachers, the children, and the families as a foundation for the education that will still take place. So it changes for each level. Elementary, they have set meeting times, they have lesson presentations, they also have their individual time with the teacher this is all on Zoom, everything's on Google Classroom. And then the adolescents have, again, a completely different structure and program. They have a whole schedule. They get on for meetings. Now, the adolescents right now are having anywhere between 2 to 3 hours of Zoom. We are in the process of reevaluating that because they're not used to that. They're used to sitting in seminars with each other at school physically, right? Where they can all talk, but they're not used to sitting, looking at the computer and trying to do all of their work. So this is all in process. We have different meetings where we can evaluate. So then obviously if we are closed for the rest of the school year, another note that I had that fell under this retention was for the graduating class to create videos leaving words of wisdom for the younger students and to say goodbye. If we are lucky enough to be able to open again in the summer, I would like to have a real graduation ceremony, even if we need to extend it. And then again, with this staying in touch and connection, we were thinking that new family Zoom chats would be a good idea. And that's something that I was going to start putting in place next week. I hadn't done it yet because I was very, very busy with retention and getting my new families who were supposed to have started. I don't know about all of you, but I had a lot of families who were supposed to start in March and April because our school goes 12 months, so we can still start at that time. And I was unable to start those families. So I had to figure out how to integrate them into the system, whether they wanted to do that. So what we finally decided to do is go ahead and integrate them, but not charge them. So those are the only families that we did not charge tuition to. We are extending all of the distance learning and the connection with the teachers and the bonding with the administration, just, you know, as an olive branch for them so that they can get to know us and understand, but we will not charge them tuition until they physically step foot on campus. Does anybody else have any thoughts around that? Like what else we can do around retention?
This is Heidi. And okay,
Heidi?
so I'm an admin and I'm a parent. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. And I'm just going to, I don't want to be negative. I just want to tell you that connection is not working for me. And
Okay.
there is literally nothing that the school could do that would make up for the fact that I'm paying full tuition and getting this fraction of the experience. So I'm hanging on because I work for the school, because I believe in the school. But if I knew that some of this next fall was going to be like this again, I don't know that I would re-enroll.
Yes, and that is, you are exactly right, because that is the situation that all of us are in. Right now, we all did this with the idea that it was only going to be for a few weeks, right? None of us had the intention that this would even extend to the full school year. So then this is another decision that may or may not have been taken by your state yet, whether or not we are going to need to be closed through the end of the school year. I'm pretty sure that all of us are going to need to be closed to this end of the school year. So that's that. Between now and then, we end on May 26th, I believe, is our last day of school. So that's still, you know, a solid 5-6 weeks away, right? If we are unable to open in September, I think we all have another issue on our hands, because how do we do that and maintain full tuition, right? So I have some notes about that I just got from the Independent Schools Board, but I agree with you, Heidi, this is very, very difficult. And that's why our head of school, Kim Schneider, and I have been having lots of parent support sessions over Zoom, discussing this just in person. I mean, we have spent hours and hours talking about this and supporting the families. And you can either, at our school, you can choose to come on by yourself, or you can choose to come on with a group of parents. What are you getting? So you have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, so a kindergartner and a 2nd grader, right? Or is it a 3rd?
Second and kindergarten, yeah.
So at your school, are you feeling, what are you getting like from the school? Are you getting lessons? Like, are they getting lessons? Are they having time with the teacher, or are you expected to do it all? Or I'm just trying to get an idea about what is happening at your school.
Yeah, I don't want to put my school on the in the spotlight. We are doing a distance learning program.
Okay.
I think that the lower elementary and on up through, we go through 8th grade. My sense is that's working. You know, it's not ideal, but it's working.
Right.
Where I have a really hard time seeing the value is for the birth through 6.
Yes, it's very difficult.
Because, you know, I appreciate everything that they're doing. It's a tough age to be on Zoom. It's a tough age to do work at home. The focus is practical life rather than academic. There's just the sheer fact that part of what I pay for, honestly, is daycare, and I'm not getting any of it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I'm not sure how we retain the younger levels in this situation. other than to say, please come back when we're open.
We've had the same conversations at our school because of the daycare aspect of it. It's actually, amazingly enough, working for our primary students. Our primary families are very happy. Our toddler families, we have 2 toddler classrooms and we only allow in 10 children in each of those. So that's only 20 children. So it's not a great number of the families at our school, but it is a struggle. We've had to tweak and change things in order to support the parents. And that's where that blog came into place, so that the parents can look at that and understand basically how to create a Montessori-like atmosphere for their children at home, but only using what you have, like not creating a classroom in your house, just using the resources that you have and what you can do. But it requires an enormous amount of effort on the part of the parents. Most parents are working, both parents. Otherwise, you don't necessarily have your young child at school for that amount of time because you could be staying home or they might only be a half-day student. So I agree, Heidi, this is a very, very tricky situation and one that we have been thinking about, talking about, tweaking, constantly. Is anyone else having these same issues? I also am a parent and an administrator of a school. How does everybody else feel about that? Okay, nobody else wants to jump in. That's fine.
I'm Renee. I'm in Oakland, California.
Renee.
Hi. And I would say that we're seeing similar things where it's really the pre-primary age that we're struggling the most and we see the parents struggling the most. Across the board, parents are struggling and that is clear.
Yeah.
And we're trying to find ways to support them. But at the primary level, the parents seem to be fairly happy, and we are providing lessons, circles every day. And one of the things we started at the pre-primary level, which has seemed to help, is that every day the pre-primary teachers are sending out a suggested schedule for that day or what the day could look like, to help give some structure to the parents. But we also are seeing that that's the level that is struggling probably the most. And then interestingly, we're seeing lower elementary parents struggling a little more than the primary parents, which is sort of interesting, but
yes, we have too. It's an adjustment. I think for speaking to the lower elementary families, those children are very young, especially the first graders. They're really like 1 foot in the first plane of development and 1 foot in the second plane of development. They're really not there yet to be able to manage this, but certainly not independently. They can't. They're just too young. So we have had to create a different structure for the very young lower elementary children. This may work for you all, and you may have thought of better things, that you're doing, which I would love to hear about. But what we did is we placed lessons on Google Classroom, and we put a lot of lessons on because obviously you have children, of various age groups in all of elementary, and our school is broken up into a lower elementary and upper elementary separate classrooms. So anyway, what we did was we talked to the parents about how to manage this with those lower elementary children, and not to think that they had to literally check off all of those lessons. It's not a one and done. You could choose only a few of those, even if it is 1 to 2 of those lessons per day, and that's it. And that is enough. It does not need to be a situation where your child is constantly working all day. If they cannot do that outside of the school environment, this is not how they're expecting to go to school, right? They come home and they relax. So and I'm sure all of you do that as well. Home is your relaxation point. We're not expecting to have to work from home, and it's the same for the children. So we created a different way to do that. I don't know if any of you have done that or thought about that as well for those very young lower elementary children, because we realized that they needed a lot more support. They're just not as independent. And the parents were okay with that. We've had to have a lot of conversations with families about at school, they would take these lessons and they would repeat them. And they would concentrate on them and they would focus on these lessons. for a long period of time. But that repetition is so vitally important because that's what ingrains this information, right? And sometimes we've had to break it down. Yesterday, I was on a call and I finally had to say to some parents who, didn't go to Montessori school themselves, I finally said, okay, like, think about it like math. When you were learning math, you didn't just get one problem of algebra and that's it. Now you know how to do algebra and you move to the next thing. You have to do it over and over and over again. So we had to talk to them about it like that. And if it's overwhelming, you just take 1 to 2 lessons a day, and it is okay. You don't need to be homeschooling your children. In fact, you shouldn't be homeschooling your children. We're all in a very unusual situation. This is not something, that we have ever gone through before. We've utilized our assistants in the classroom. Our assistants are working all day long alongside the teachers for sort of like breakout sessions where the teacher might be giving a lesson to one group of children and the assistant is sitting with those children on Zoom and talking to them and working through it, or just being there. So there's lots of different ways to do this, and none of it is easy, and none of it is a one solution for any and all of us, right? Every household is different. How the families operate are different. What they need and are expecting from the school is different. So I think it is a very good idea to get a handle on what your families need and try to work with them individually. And even if you have a very big school, you've got to try, because we really need to retain the families that we have right now. That is crucially important. Those families who are relying on you for daycare only, back to Heidi, like for the toddlers, for example, who are really there for a daycare situation only, you may not retain those families, and that is okay. Because when you are able to physically open your campus again, you can fill those spots. At least in toddler, those are your most valuable spots, because everyone does need childcare for their family, but you also have to know when to let families go, right? If it's really just they're there for the daycare only, you've given them a lot of information about Montessori and they're not, it's not resonating with them still. Usually you've done your work, before we ever get to this point in your admissions process. You've done your work, you've interviewed these families, you should have your parent events and your meetings with the teacher and anything else that you do at your school that's giving parents a lot of information about Montessori, why you're doing what you're doing. All of that work obviously should be in place from the time that family first steps foot in the door to tour your school the first time. And those relationships that you have built with those families are what's going to get you through now. You have to work extra hard for your new families who have just come in the middle of this crisis because they haven't built those relationships yet. But I think it really is it's really a lot about communication and support. And that's why I really wanted to have this Zoom call with you all today too, because I think we do all need a lot of support. None of us are experts in this. We've never done this before. And we need to know that everybody else is in the same boat, just like our parents are all in the same boat. So it's really nice to connect and try to come up with ideas, that we can all use together. If anyone wants to jump in, please feel free. I was going to go look at some of our other questions.
So I wanted to read some of the comments because we've had some good ones. Kara mentioned that they're doing virtual play dates, which was, I thought, really interesting. And Kara, if you wanted to talk more about that, please feel free. And if not, I totally understand. I don't want to put you on the spot. And then Emily mentioned that they've implemented a distance learning platform for each level. And I bring that up because it was one of the primary responses we got. So if Emily wanted to talk more about that, that'd be great. And then Kathy has a whole program for all levels using Google Classroom and then of course Zoom. Mm-hmm. And I think I saw Alejandra raise her hand a moment ago and I didn't mean to interrupt, forgive me.
Hi. One of the things with dealing with the daycare aspect is a lot of those parents are also so young that for them, this is like the first time that they're dealing with tuition, that they're dealing with contracts, like they don't even understand the concept of, you know, the whole academic year. So for them, it's like a different struggle of, you know, like a totally generational thing where it's like, but I'm not getting anything in return. What am I paying for? So, you know, we did do a survey, just said, you know, if we could reopen as an emergency childcare center, who would be interested? And what's interesting is that still over half of the parents said they were not interested at all. So it's like kind of they're working through this struggle. So Lise, I really appreciated you saying that, you know, yes, you know, because it is a daycare, we will be able to recoup those families, you know, so there is like some comfort in that, but, you know, just like letting everyone know too, that it's like a different breed of family, of parents, because again, because they're so young.
Yes,
And
that is an
just don't, this is like their first time going through anything like this, you know, apart from the whole daycare situation as well.
That is a really excellent point, Alex. Absolutely, that is true. This is a different generation. And every year, that's something that I think about in the admissions process, which I'm sure all of you do too, because about maybe every, I don't know, I would say like every 5 years or so, I notice that the parents have changed again. It's like a little tweak that comes in, you know, with different expectations and different needs that the parents have. And you always have to stay on top of what is the latest thing that the parents need from you, right? And that is speaking to Alex's point of they are very young. And none of us have survived a war like World War II, you know, or anything like this. So this is, we've had other wars since, but obviously this is more war-like in the sense that we can't get groceries, you know, some people aren't sure how they're feeding their children, they're being furloughed, they're lost their job completely. And then you have tuition and contracts on top of that. And I think that is a really excellent point. They just don't understand why. I have some really good wording around that that I would be happy to share with you. Our head of school has written a personal email to families who have this, and first she invites them for the Zoom talk and then gives them we call it like a parent forum, but we give them this information ahead of time. This is why we are asking you to do this. But we're expecting you to get on this call too, because nothing can replace the face-to-face time that we would have if we were going to have a meeting with you in person at the school, which is what we would do under other circumstances, right? You would have them come in and talk to you in person. And obviously we can't do that right now. So we have been having Zoom meetings for that. And it's been really helpful for parents who think that they don't want to do this, you know, and don't understand how it works and the whole idea of the independent school. And we're using us mostly as a daycare. And then once we're able to sit down and really talk through it, all of the families at our school so far have said, literally, okay, we get it. We're continuing to pay the full tuition for the rest of the school year. What we did do, because our school does run 12 months a year, our enrollment agreement goes from September through May. And then the summer, June, July, and August, although this year we're starting on August 31st, but we have, the school's open and parents enroll their children, but they're not contractually obligated by a contract. So that has always given us the ability to prorate tuition during the summer so that families can take vacations and then they're not paying for tuition when they're on vacation. I'm sure you all probably do something similar. So what we've done is we've said that right now, we haven't said this about any other level, but we have said for the toddlers specifically because of the daycare component that the school would continue with the distance learning through May because that's what everyone has been contractually obligated for. Starting in June, we would stop. If the school is not physically able to be open, then we're going to stop and everyone is just going to have a break over the summer or until the school is physically open again. And then in September, everyone would just start back again so that there would be no tuition charged. And we, of course, immediately had refunded tuition for all the extra things. So when we say people will continue to pay tuition, obviously, and they're not paying for extended care, break care days, which are days that we have in our calendar set up for working parents who need extra days while the staff has no school. So we have figured out different ways around this so that we were saying, okay, obviously you can't have an extended day right now. So we're reducing the tuition for some families in the sense of it being individual. I hope that makes sense. But we did offer to stop tuition completely for the summer. But interesting enough, when we did that, those parents, even the ones who were, are we getting a discount or why are we paying? They immediately came back and said, but wait a second, my child still has a spot in June, right? Like if you open the campus again, I've got a spot. And we said, of course, yes. So it was very interesting after those calls and the email that our head of school sent out and the conversations that we had, that they really didn't want that. They really want to be at the school and be part of the school, which was very heartening to us. But we also understand that there will be those parents who it doesn't matter to them. And that's okay. That's okay too, because you will get them back as soon as the campus is open again. People are going to be desperate to have their children back on a regular schedule and back in school.
Lise, we have Emily Miller. She would like to share some of what she's been doing.
Absolutely.
And she, until now, couldn't hop on. Emily, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Sorry about my audiovisual, guys. I'm multitasking. And so we're a small school in Massachusetts. We are recognized by the DOE as a private school, which gives us essential worker sort of leeway, as some of you probably already know. We hopped on the distance learning platform pretty much immediately within each individual level. So we go toddler through upper L. Upper L just started actually this year. It was a very fast learning curve, but one of the things we did that worked very, very effectively is we got everything out there with strong communication from me initially, and then in each individual, team of guides. And then after the 5 days of that, I scheduled Zoom meetings for not the school in its entirety, because everyone's concerns and schedules and needs were different. So within each individual group level, so there was an opportunity for face-to-face with me as head of school and all of those parents. So they got to hear one another's questions and concerns, and nobody was interpreting my feedback. It was, no game of telephone happening there. Everyone who wanted to be there and hear could. And based on that feedback, after a week of implementation, as well as planning and programming and cheerleading and all of that at once, we all sort of felt like we were treading water. We made some tweaks and got immediate feedback, because the tweaks in whether it was the scheduling or the delivery system or how we were handling feedback or the open work period, we made those tweaks based on feedback and immediately got amazing and supportive responses. And I'm not offering this to pat us on the back, because we're busting our what's like everybody else and learning as we go like everybody else. But that piece, I think that those meetings with the individual groups, that face-to-face time, and then being available by cell phone or email or whatever in a way that's consistent with the way your school already runs, is super important. And from there, we started with elementary, because we felt like that had we had to prioritize, because there was a lot to do in a very short time. So it went from elementary to primary to the extended day kindergartners to toddlers. And everyone's schedule is different. Their Zoom schedule based on what's developmentally appropriate for the ages. I'm trying to talk really fast so that I don't keep you too long. And I think it's still an evolution in process, because nobody knows, although we're anticipating this, till the end of the school year. The one thing I did do is I changed the school calendar. I said to families, and I communicated this directly, I said, for everyone's overall physical and emotional health, we all need a break. You need a break from distance learning at home, and our teachers need some time for planning and programming. So I moved the April vacation and break to this week, so that and we're not on break, we're planning and programming for 3 weeks. We had a staff meeting yesterday to gather resources and put together a comprehensive and easy to follow and implement program that's consistent as much as it can be with what we have already been doing. So that when we hit the ground running on Monday, you can be 100% present in the implementation and feedback piece. And then the teachers aren't, treading water and drowning, and neither am I. We're planning ahead, but we've got a 3-week buffer. And so the only other thing I will say is we've learned along the way for families, based on their feedback and our own sanity, giving them a week's worth of plans and resources allows especially those working families to say, okay, I need to take a breath. I know what's coming. I know how I'm going to, or at least I have time to fit this into our family schedule, whatever that, or, lifestyle or whatever that looks like right now. And it allows them to come back to us and say, but I don't have this, I need that. Like we've lent out devices, we've printed materials, for families that don't have access in other ways, and otherwise provided support. So that's been an important piece, giving them everything in advance. And I think that this is the most important piece, the compassion piece, saying to everybody, and you're all Montessorians, so I'm sure that you are doing this already, but understanding that everyone is in a different space and place in terms of health and emotional well-being right now, financial situations, and being compassionate and saying, we understand that everyone is going to take this and engage or apply it in a way that works for them. And that has to be the expectation and supported, because all we can do as a school is give you 110% and provide the opportunity, and then support you, like I said, in as much as you can take and implement, and we're here for you, and we understand some of you are going to be looking to us and saying, okay, what next? And others are going to be saying, oh my gosh, really, I can't do any of this. And hopefully, I said, everyone else will be somewhere in the middle. So I think I got everything I wanted to say out.
Emily, we've got a question for you from Jennifer. She asks, what time of day are you having parent forums? We can't find the sweet spot. Okay.
So I discovered very quickly on that if you put that out there, you're never going to get a majority. So what you do is you said, what I did anyway, was I said, I'm offering a parent forum. I would love it if everybody could be there. I think it's important and it's necessary. We can do it between this time and this time. And the window is very small. And I understand that we have working families and dinner time is a thing. So I think I ended up I did 2 at 8 a.m. And that was for the littles. And then I did elementaries. I think I did them at 5. I did one at 5 and one at 5:30. I sort of said it and people attended. I think
that's what we did too. We are doing the same exact thing, Emily. Literally everything you said is what we're doing. And we did the same with the parent forums. We just gave times, and we did a morning, and we did the 8 and a 3:30 and a 5. And there's one tonight at 7:30, but that's a little bit different. But in evening time as well, to give parents the different options. And they came.
Yeah, I mean, it's working. And I've gotten one family that has said from a monetary standpoint, and they had a child that went through all the way through the primary program through extended day kindergarten, but she's dealing with having 2 littles at home now, and the daycare aspect that she has sort of surrounded her youngest one with. And I'm working on being compassionate and understanding, and also trying to, I've said to all families, we all as heads of school have 2 very equally important responsibilities. One is to maintain the financial integrity of the institution so that it still exists going forward. And the second is to make sure that we are doing the best to deliver in this really weird time, an appropriate and as Montessori as we can get delivery system for learning and support for parents and maintaining community. So it's not easy. Can I answer one other question? I don't mean to be like hijacking the floor, but
No,
someone asked about the open work period. So Lise, you can, you know, if you're doing this, please jump in. But we do have an open work period for all the levels. And the way that we've discovered that it works is there's, you know, open group community time or whatever, and lessons or presentations that are in terms of duration and content, whatever's right for that group. And then we have set the families up again with materials. So for the toddlers, they did whisking the other day. So the families knew what they needed to have. It was demonstrated. And then the teachers sit back and invite the children to do it and provide feedback. They're all on mute because they're the toddlers until the very end when they're chatting, and provide feedback. Oh, I see that Nora is whatever. And the kids are engaged. It's amazing. And I'm surprised, but it's working. For the primary, they do, and I can't take credit for this, Global Montessori Network has been amazing, but learning to do it and applying it and practicing, zooming in and out. So you have your open group community time, you do lessons or presentations, and then we have the kids all up on a screen. I have teams, so it's not just one guide. And just like an open work period, when you see a child not engaged, you might say, you know, Qasim, are you going to choose whatever or whatever today? You know, so he knows that you're there and watching. Or Deneen, I see you just finished those 3-part matching cards. You should be really proud of yourself. And there's motivation to keep going because somebody's, you know, giving me feedback. And so we have found that that works. And are there students where it doesn't work for and they don't come back until the teacher's voice is on the screen? Absolutely. And for elementary students, it works very much the same way. It's, you know, your regular classroom time, group time, and then, okay, now go. With the doc, they know what they need to get done within a day or within a week. They're allowed to schedule it. There is an accountability piece, and there is feedback. So those open work periods are working, but for each group, the level of engagement and type of engagement needs to mirror what you're doing in the classroom on a day-to-day basis. And we are keeping lists and trying to make sure that we do connect somehow with each individual student, because that's really important. Kind of like your observations. You realize you've left somebody out when you go to the end of the day or the week and there's nothing written beside somebody's name. So it's the same kind of thing.
You know, I got to chime in. We've got about 4 minutes left for the end of the call. And one thing I think we should definitely do is maybe get an itinerary for the next calls. So if there are other topics we need to cover, resources we need to create, this might be a good time for us to start building that slate. The one that I have here that was actually requested before this call started was learning how to conduct virtual tours. So if that's something that people would be interested, chime into chat. I see some head shaking. That's great. So I'll do a call on that. But what other calls do we need? And what other thought leaders do we want to go get? Lisa was amazing today as an admissions guru. And I imagine, Lisa, there's just a billion other things that you know. And everybody on this call, I imagine, has just a ton of, you know, awesome stuff to share. And if there's other folks out in the ether that we can bring into the fold, let's do that too. Because I feel like we can really draw upon the collective Montessori thought leadership. So yes, on the virtual tours. Go ahead.
I think that finances was a question that you all had. And so I have a lot of information about that. And obviously I guess we don't have enough time today, but I did organize information around that too, that I am happy to share with you all. And just so you know, we did have a situation here in St. Louis, and I'll make this really short. We are a member of the Independent Schools of St. Louis, but I believe we are the only Montessori school who is. So we get this information from these other schools. And one of the big schools here offered a discount on tuition, even though for the entire school year next year, even though all the rest of the schools in St. Louis did not agree to that, and put the rest of the heads of school in really bad positions because of it. And So they actually, it's been kind of like this ongoing thing in the background. But anyway, we got really excellent wording from the Independent Schools Board of Trustees talking about why we really need to unify together around what we're doing. And I don't know if you all have organizations that you belong to within your city that might be having discussions around this. But anyway, I'm happy to share those. So we can have another talk on finances.
That's great. And we've got a sheet here that I'm going to link to. This is a collective resources sheet. That means anybody can add to it. And you should all have a link to that in the chat now. If you're watching the recording, I'll link to this to wherever the recording lives. But please, if you've got stuff, let's share our stuff. Because, you know, I just noticed somebody commented in, I think it was Renee. She said, we're working on creating a digital citizenship guidelines for parents. That's amazing.
I like that.
Yes.
That's really good.
So, and no, Renee needs help with, you know, amalgamating that content. But Renee, once you have it, if you'd be willing to share something like that so everybody else can see it, because there's no reason for all of us to recreate the wheel. Marianne just chimed in and said yes on finances. So I'm going to definitely schedule a new call around finances for sure. We'll schedule a new call around virtual tours. What was the third category, Lise, that we had?
Maybe distance learning. I think that one probably needs to concentrate on admissions only, one needs to concentrate on the finances, and one on digital learning. Maybe like three. Should we break it out? Does that sound good to everybody if we break it out in sort of those three categories?
Okay, so I've got virtual tours, Montessori finances, digital learning. And is there anybody we should be going to and asking to come into the space? Like, is anybody just really crushing remote learning, distance learning?
What?
If there's anybody that's doing like a really good job, let me know and I'll reach out to them and try to con them.
Yeah, we have a member who actually started the Global Montessori Network, Joanne. So we should definitely reach out to her because she's doing some amazing stuff on Facebook and she's really pulled a lot of people together.
That's great. What about finances? Is there like a finance guru in the Montessori space?
I asked our director of operations and finances if she would want to jump in, but she didn't want to because she said she doesn't. She said she's not good on camera. But I do work very closely with her, so at least I can give you guys a lot of information around that. But it would be great to have, if anybody has someone who specifically deals with it. Otherwise, I actually know a lot about it just because of how our school works. But she wasn't willing to get on. I tried.
No, well, and I'm just hypersensitive to drawing too much on your time, Lisa. I really appreciate you. I mean, this was Lisa's idea, by the way, everyone. She reached out to me and said, hey, let's do this. So thank you so much for doing that, Lisa. Really grateful to you.
You're welcome. I think that we need a forum to connect because I'm sure everyone is struggling in a lot of different ways. And if we can share and pull resources and ideas, I think it's a really great thing. And know that we're all not alone in this. We're all in different states and sometimes different countries, and we're all dealing with the exact same thing. And where are we going to get these students? We can't even show the school right now. So yeah, we should talk about, you know, virtual tours and social media, probably, you know, the whole marketing aspect and social media would be important as well. How to get people to find you in different ways.
Is a weekly cadence good if we were to do this every Thursday? Do we want to do it more often? Is that a little overwhelming?
I'm fine doing weekly. I don't know how you all feel. A quick check-in every week.
Weekly would work. All right.
I think getting back on our cadence at 12:30 Central Time every Thursday, because those were our coaching calls. I think that would be a good idea.
Just penciling right back into that slot. And then we'll try to keep doing the same thing. I want to be nimble with our topics so we can address what's going on right now. And again, if there's anything that people need done, created, let us know because we'll do it. We'll build it. Super grateful to everyone.
One quick question before we hang up. Is there anyone from Aiden Montessori on this call? Does anyone know this school, Aiden Montessori?
Aiden's a member.
They're a member.
Yes,
they did an amazing, like if you just Google them, open up their website and you'll see that they have this little pop-up that talks about the distance learning, but then this is the reason I'm telling you all this, because I think that this could be really excellent. And we're going to do something similar for new parents who are perusing and looking at your school. You can link right through from the pop-up to information about distance learning. And they have done a really good job with this. And I am going to do that for us as well. Yeah, so here, you can see it. So if you do the click on there after you've read that,
Oh, wow.
they've got, it's awesome. Now, this is a little time intensive. If you really take the time to look through this, you'll notice that if you open Toddler, what they're doing is every single week, they're saying, this is what you're going to be doing this week. Here's your weekly plan. Now, I don't know if you want to go so far as to put your weekly plan on there, because that is what your families are paying tuition for, right? You have to be, at least in my opinion, I'm thinking, okay, you want to share so that new families who are interested in your school can see what you're doing. But I don't know that I am at my school, I'm not going to put the weekly plan on there, because I do want families to feel like they're paying for something that not everybody can just get easily. That's my opinion. I think everybody can do this how they want to do it. But I think the idea that how they did this, even saying, you know, like your daily schedule, that's something that is very easy to put on there. And then that's shareable, right? So you have to think about what you want to share and what you don't want to share without taking away from the tuition that parents are paying. But this can help us in our admissions processes for families who are looking at our school and thinking about whether they're going to join your school. You have something clear in place so that if this happens again in the winter during flu season of next year and we all have to close the school again, we have a plan in place, right? And it's showing you're on top of it. So I'm going to create something very similar like this, or ask Kasim to, for our school too, just not exactly what they've done, obviously. But anyway, kudos to Aiden. I was hoping someone was on the call because I thought that was really brilliant.
Well, it looks like they have this little footer on their site that says, thank you so much to Marin Montessori School, Tokyo Montessori School, and to the many Montessori collaborators worldwide that have helped share ideas. So this feels like it's sort of an amalgamation of other stuff as well, which is great. Oh, and Kara knows the folks at Aiden. Maybe we can rope in, sounds like Kathy.
Oh, I know Kathy Minardi. Okay.
Awesome. This is fantastic. I really appreciate everybody. The recording is going to be live and available. So everybody knows for Nito, we're putting all of our stuff, anything that we provide or create or have, we're putting it on our Montessori homepage. It's free to all schools. So you don't even have to sign up. Like there's no gate. But if you go to the Montessori homepage, there's a ton of videos that you can use if you want to. And if you scroll all the way down, there's downloadable assets. And this video will be available in the downloadable assets. And then anything that you want to gift to other schools, please feel free to send it to me, and then I'll make that available on this page too. And we just want to have like a place where everybody can go to get, you know, as much support as they can possibly get.
Thank you so much, Kasim. You have done an amazing, amazing job for all of us. We feel very supported. Your distance learning plan that you created, like with the template, was just enormously helpful for us to get our minds around even how to do this. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that
As well.
Arbor Montessori gave that to us. So they were a member and they said, hey, we created this using Tokyo Montessori's content. And so we just reskinned it. So it's like, it's just so cool. You know, like everybody can come together and contribute. But thanks for sharing that, Lise. You made my day. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to see everybody next Thursday and spread the word. Let other Montessori schools know that we're doing this, and we'll keep it going.
Yeah, that would be great. And remember, everybody, I'm not an expert on all of this, so I really appreciate everybody's, you know, feedback and jumping in, and whatever you all think of and share is really important for all of us. I hope that this can be a support forum for all of us.
Thank you, Lise.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.